Everybody be seated first. Hi, good evening, everyone. Thanks a lot for coming here. I know you guys are really busy, like probably doing a lot of projects for the hackathon, so really appreciate you taking the time for this workshop. We're giving a couple more minutes for everybody to get seated, but I think we're pretty much full, so happy to get started now. But yeah, as I said, thanks for coming here. We'll both quickly introduce ourselves. All right, perfect. So I'm Manit, as you guys can see. We are both Master of Science Human Computer Interaction students at University of Maryland, both second years master's students. I am actually InfoSci undergrad student from here as well. I graduated in 2019, and I was working for about 3 years, and now I'm back doing my master's program here. And I'll hand it off to Pooja.
Hey everyone, I'm Pooja. I have been in design since my undergrad. I did my bachelor's in visual communication and strategic branding, and then I've come out here for my master's in human computer interaction. And in between there, I worked for 2.5 years, 3 years as a product designer. So if you're here, I'm sure you're wondering what is UX. To keep it very simple, UX stands for user experience, and it's about designing products or services that cater to the specific needs and requirements of a user. To further break it down, design essentially is how a product or service looks and works. And UX design is to plan how a product or service looks and works to make sure the activity of using it is easy and enjoyable. So let's better understand the concept of this with an activity. Somewhere in the 18th century, Queen Mary Antoinette said, let them eat cake. So, well, allegedly. So let's take precedent from her. You all must have a card in front of you or a paper, ideally. And I need you to imagine that you're a baker or you own a cake company. And I walked into your store and asked you to make me a cake. So take 2 minutes to quickly draw or sketch out a cake design for me. Make it as detailed as you can. Talk about layers, flavors, frosting, colors, whatever you would like.
If any of you guys need like any sketch pens or markers, let us know. We have some up at the front. And we want you guys to be like kind of quick with this activity, so we'll give you guys a couple minutes for it. So it's 4:51 now. We'll try to close it off around 4:53 if that's okay.
You have another 60 seconds to go. Doesn't have to be perfect, as long as I can understand what you've written or drawn. All right. Considering this is a huge room, ideally we want to go through everything, but I might just pick 1 or 2 at random. And yeah, if anyone wants to volunteer, they can put their hands up, or we'll just choose you at random and pick out a design. Okay, random it is. Okay, so we've got some really good cake designs out here. This one starts off with 4 layers. There's mocha, vanilla, chocolate, and then a thin vanilla frosting. Okay, that's pretty good. And oh, this one even has candles in it. Chocolate and vanilla, 3 layers, milk chocolate ganache. Okay, so chocolate and vanilla are seeming to be, yeah, okay, sure. This one's just a really pretty drawing. Okay, while we're collecting other designs, I want you to think about how easy or hard it was to think of a design and what made you choose the cake or the flavor or how it's gonna look like. And okay, yeah, again, we've got cheese bread and strawberry jam. That's interesting. So as you can see, like there's some similarities, but like all of the cakes are very different. And I'm assuming everyone has a very unique approach to what their cakes are. And correct me if I'm wrong, but you're also maybe choosing a flavor that you personally like, right? So sorry, well, that was us looking at your design. So if you had to design a cake for me, your first question essentially should be, what do I like? What am I allergic to? What are my preferences? And these are a few details that you can look at right now. And maybe you can try designing cakes again based off of what I like and what I've done in the past. And let's see how easier it is for you to make a design for me. Yeah, so maybe another 60 seconds or 2 minutes. What seems good for you guys? 2 minutes? Okay, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so does anyone want to volunteer to explain their new cake design and why they chose to do it?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
We have a couple people.
Can all of you just come up, whoever wants to volunteer with your drawing and to
Yeah,
speak
the-
about it?
The bar for the mic is a little bit.
Yeah.
It's to move around.
Sorry to put you on the spot. Yeah, of course.
Oh, okay.
I'll hold
So-
it up for you.
I made a coconut cake with like a tangerine filling, but because you said you liked fruity flavors, and then I'm thinking about like coffee cake. And personally, I don't know. I feel like coffee cake, which I've had before, and tangerine would be good in my opinion. But yeah, I didn't get the colors or anything, but I did the design like a tiramisu. So like you have 3 layers, etc. Yeah.
This absolutely sounds like a cake I would order at a cafe. And do you want to go?
I made a strawberry shortcake tiramisu. So like it has a strawberry jam with like a white like whipped cream with lady fingers in it. And so it keeps like the minimalistic color scheme with like pops of red from the jam and also stays fruity while it's still a tiramisu being soaked in coffee.
Perfect. This recipe is actually right off of my Pinterest saves. So that's a great design right there. Okay. I wanted to reflect on the activity really quick. When you first started designing a cake, you had no information about me, although you were designing for me. And all of you came from your own personal experience. You probably made a cake that you would want to eat. And the second round, when you read all of this information about me, you started designing a cake with my interests in mind, right? In the world of UX, this is called user research, and these are the user needs. So in order to design a product that is successful and it is a product that your user will use, you need to understand your users, where they're coming from, what do they like, what do they hate, what are their motivations, what are they allergic to. And once you cater to all of those needs, you're able to provide a product that perfectly fits for them. Well, I'd be wrong by saying perfectly. It best suits them. There's no such thing as a perfect product, of course. Yeah. So there's a difference between informed and uninformed design decisions. When you're creating a product, well, take example, this cake. If some of you chose peanut butter, there's a chance that I'm going to have an allergic reaction, probably threaten my life. And that's going to cause legal consequences if you are a cake owner, a cake business owner, right? So the reason why you have to look into informing your design decisions while working for a business is the fact that there's a lot of business impact for your design. So UX doesn't just deal with how a cake is going to look like or how it's going to taste, but also it talks about the larger picture of how well a business is going to do. So what are the positive impact? What are the positive UX that you could provide for the cake, right? So, well, say strawberry shortcake tiramisu. It is what I've been looking at for a while now in my Pinterest. If I get it in front of me, I'm going to be so happy. After that, I'm going to go tell my friends. I'm going to be like, okay, you know what? They did such a good job at imagining what exactly I wanted and provided a cake that was perfect. You should go and check them out next birthday or next cafe date, or if you're going to go out and study together, maybe that's where we should go. So there's a word of mouth referrals that started. You've gotten a return customer out of me. There's user retention in the sense that I'm going to return again to your business. And then there's also an enhanced brand perception. So I know that I can trust you to make the perfect cake for me, but I also trust that you're going to be able to make the perfect cake for everyone else. Now, when you don't do a good job at figuring out who I am and not designing well for me, there are negative business impacts that can happen. One is that I would probably not come again. B, there's going to be a loss in revenue because A, either I'm not going to come again. I'm also not going to tell anyone to come to yours. In fact, I'm going to go out of my way and say, hey, you should never go to that place because they really just don't know what they're doing. Especially they try to poison me with the peanut butter, right? And I could actually just sue you. So you want to make sure that your business is not being sued by the customers that are coming. There's damaged reputation. There's not just reduced customer trust, there's just no establishment of it, right? So whenever you're, again, thinking of UX, whenever you're thinking of the experience of a customer, you're making sure everything you're leading up to is going to benefit the business at large.
All right, thanks a lot, Pooja, for running us through that. So the activity was pretty simple, kind of, a high level what a UX is like, but we also wanted to just put together one slide of what a UX process actually looks like. So this is something we do on a very regular basis in our projects in the master's program, but you basically start with empathizing with your users. That usually happens with some interviews, some focus groups, things like that, contextual interviews. Then you kind of, once you're empathetic towards your end user, you go into defining what their needs are. And that was kind of the list that Pooja had put together here. That's something called user needs. So that was a set of user needs that we had here. Off of those user needs, you kind of develop some user personas, journey maps, things like that. Those are some technical assets that we use in our world pretty often. From there, you start ideating with your team. Ideating meaning in the sense that you just kind of start thinking about design ideas, what the app could look like, what the website could look like. It could even be like VR apps, things like that. Once you churn out a lot of ideas, sketch with your team, you kind of start going into the design pieces. That's where all the design tools like Figma, Adobe XD, Sketch, and all of these things come in. And once you kind of get done with the design and have your first iteration of the product ready, you take it finally towards the users. That's the end part, and that's called testing. And as you guys can see in this whole diagram, this is an iterative process. So on every step, you keep going back and forth. From research, you go to defining. From defining, you go to a certain stage and then come back. For example, one idea would be once you come up with your first iteration of design, you take that into testing, and the results you get from your user testing is what you apply to your second iteration of designs. So that essentially means you're kind of like, jumping between those cycles a lot. But yeah, overall, this, if you can quickly go back, yeah, this map is actually coming from Interaction Design Foundation. It's one of the very renowned like UX organizations out there. So if you guys do want to look up, this is something called design thinking. We use this in our field very often. So something definitely to kind of study a little bit more about. You can go into the next slide. So we also had a couple, we also just wanted to show a couple screenshots of like what good and bad UX is. So the first screenshot on the left is just purely good visual design. Visual design is a big part of user experience. So this is Pillow. It's a sleep-based app. And I saw this website the other day, but the layout principles here is the way the icon is placed. Everything is aligned well on the left side. The QR code kind of occupies this negative space on the right side. It's very well, nicely, neatly organized. So these are some of the graphic design principles you'd be using as a UX designer. On the right here, these are something related to, form design kind of guidelines. So these are things on how you tell the error state to the user. So for example, if they make a mistake in this, they don't have the @ symbol here. You give them the error message right in that particular like input field instead of, telling them all the way on the top and they have to scroll back up and then come back down. So things like that are something to be mindful of. Once you become a UX designer, you kind of get into each piece of the UI element. So sometimes you'll look into form design, input field design, and things like that. So you get very specific into each kind of domain as well.
Just to quickly rewind, we didn't want to go too into detail and technicalities of what UX is, considering this might be a new field to you guys. But what UX essentially is deciding that, okay, there's a problem that we've noticed, and who's this problem affecting, and that's our users. We try to understand our users, then put ourselves in the shoes of the users. That's called empathizing, and asking ourselves, okay, what would the user want, or what does the user need in this moment? And then we come up with a couple of ideas, and then we take those ideas, test them out with other sample users, and see how well is it actually solving their problem. And then after that, once we've decided that this idea works the best, we put it out into the market. And that's essentially what UX is. It's thinking about not just the product, but also the users, how it's going to work, how it's affecting the business, how it's affecting the users, and all of it, essentially. So why should you consider a career in UX? To start off, I don't know about you guys, but UX design is one of the more gender balanced fields in STEM. And based off of studies, it has around 40% women. I'm afraid I wasn't able to get any data on other underrepresented genders, so I'm only able to showcase women right now. And this is significantly higher as compared to other STEM fields where the average generally is 28%. There's a growing awareness of importance of diversity and inclusion. If anything, that's one of the core principles of designing in the UX world. So it is a space that you will never feel like underrepresented or like ignored and anything. And your opinions are going to be far more valuable than any other layman's experience. Lastly, you don't really need any prior background when it comes to UX design. You could be coming from any field, and coming from a different field actually gives you a lot of strength because you're coming from a varied perspective. Design is a lot more about thinking. It's about thinking critically. It's about applying what your understanding is into products. And it's not necessarily a skill that's too hard to get involved in.
Thanks, Pooja. So we put together like one slide of how you can get involved in UX on campus. 362 is how I got into this field. And I've worked as a UX designer. That was kind of my calling when I was doing my undergrad at University of Maryland. But yeah, a bunch of classes here. iSchool offers a lot of classes related to prototyping, visual design, data visualization, things like that. There's also art classes, as you guys can see, some CMSC courses. But on top of that, I also want to kind of point you guys towards some self-learning resources. I did this a lot. Like as soon as I graduated from my undergrad, I was working at a small startup firm. And what I did like every day was just go to like Interaction Design Foundation, LinkedIn Learning, and just kind of get more and more courses to just build my profile a little bit. And in the UX fields, those certifications like cybersecurity are really renowned. Like this looks really good on your LinkedIn profile. So especially like the Google UX certificate or the Nielsen Norman Group ones are really good resources. So definitely feel free to check those out. All right, so I think that's pretty much what we had for you guys for today. Yeah. Oh, you want to talk about this? Yeah.
We ended up skipping the slide, but I felt that it was a little bit important. I work to earn, and I'm sure all of you guys do as well. It's a pretty well-paying field, especially when you're starting off. As you can see, based off of different websites and their like survey, all of your average salary is going to be at least above 90,000 a year. So it's definitely something worth considering. UX does come, well, if you were to draw a Venn diagram, it's business, design, and technology, essentially. So any kind of background on that or any kind of skills you want to pick up on that is going to be the perfect gateway to getting into UX.
Cool. So we just kind of wanted to close off here. Another resource that we wanted to point you was UX Trips. It's a student-run club. I am UX Trips' president. So if you guys do feel like getting involved, what we do over the year is host design hackathons as well as design workshops, like portfolio building workshop, things like that. So we have all our Discord and everything linked from this link tree. So feel free to join our Discord, send me a message if you guys are interested in joining. But yeah, I'll close it off here and open it up to questions that you guys have for us. All right. If not any questions, feel free to come up to us at the end of the session. But thanks a lot for attending, guys.